Hello guys, and welcome to another episode of World of Tanks with me, Gitbag. Today we're going to be looking at some nice little bit of lower tier carnage, something we didn't do the first two episodes I'd done for this channel. I just thought it might be nice to start off the little period of lower tier carnage with a nice tier 4 infantry tank or medium tank that the British had, the Matilda. This is a tier 4 tank on the British heavy line. It's classified as a medium tank, but in the Second World War it was classified as an infantry tank because the British didn't differentiate between heavy and the British didn't differentiate between medium and light tanks. They made either infantry tanks like the Matilda or the Churchill, and then they made like cruiser tanks like the Crusader here, or the cruiser or tanks like that, or the light Vickers Mark 6C. But this episode we're going to be looking at the Matilda, and this is I've armed it with its top gun, which is a well, actually it's got two top guns really. It's got a 2-pounder, which is high rate of fire, very low damage, like 55. It's like standard shell damage is like 41 to 69, so it's like very low damage, and it can only fire AP shells with this 2-pounder gun that I've got it with. Or you can fit it with the 3-inch howitzer, which has got average damage of 110 to 175. Average penetration is 38 to 100. I mean, it usually does more damage than that, but I find, but I mean, that is a good gun if you want to do some seal clubbing at lower tiers. But I don't know why, even though on lower tier vehicles I usually prefer to give them derp guns, because most lower tier tanks have light armour that can be punched through quite easily and then ripped apart by high explosive shells that do more damage. I like to give the Matilda its 2-pounder rapid fire gun because it is just so much fun. It's so rapid fire, it does pretty good penetration. You can penetrate like tier 4 heavy tanks, which are notoriously tough for tier 4 tanks, quite easily with this gun. And it's also it's very slow, but it's also very tough. And I fitted it with a medium spool liner here, which reduces damage taken by ramming and explosions by 25%. And I just did that because this thing is so slow and heavily armoured. I thought I might get targeted a lot by enemy artillery, so I'll fit it with a medium spool liner. And you can see here it's only got either AP shells or APCR shells, and I just fitted with AP shells because I kind of want to save my credits for getting higher tier tanks. I don't have much to spend on like lower tier premium rounds, so just let's go straight in. Now, this thing does go in sometimes with tier 5 tanks, which is kind of a bother, and it sometimes goes in with tier 6 tanks. And there you see here, it's gone in with a bunch of tier 5s, a handful of tier 4s. So this kind of matchmaking could be better for the Matilda, because it usually does go in with tier 4s, mostly tier 4s, but I think this one time it's just gone in with tier 5s. And now we're on Ruinberg on Fire, which is one of the altered maps that came out in patch 8.11, I think. Which is kind of a pointless map, really.
Let's get this show on the road.
I mean, it's no different from the original Ruinberg map. It's pretty much just a couple of patches of the map are on fire, and that kind of butchers frame rates for some people. And the fire isn't even that noticeable, so it's kind of a pointless map, really. But I'm not going to rag on wargaming too much. I mean, while they do flop with map making sometimes, it's not always bad. Like, I really like Hidden Village, and this map isn't too bad, to be fair, but it's just not that different, really, from the original Ruinberg map. So we're on Encounter Battle, so I'm gonna head straight into the city, and you'll see how slow this thing is. I mean, most people will associate lower tier vehicles with high speed and low armour, but the tanks on the British heavy line, and most of the tanks for most of the French tank lines, are at like tier 4 and below have heavy armour and little speed, so it kind of contradicts that traditional view. I mean, you can see I'm reaching like 24, 23 kilometers an hour here. Most tier 4 tanks can do like 10 kilometers at the very least, more than that, so this thing is quite slow. I mean, you want to see a fast tier 4 tank, you look at the Soviet tier 4 T-50 scout tank. That thing is fast. I mean, bloody fast. I never got it myself, but it's quick. So I got a Type T-34 tier 5 Chinese medium tank there. It's popping his side out. Should really be side scraping, so I have less of a chance of penning him, but he's probably just not that experienced. So he's going to keep coming out. Oh, showing his side on to us, while I put out my higher rate of fire on him. Unfortunately, I did get tracked there by German artillery, but the damage wasn't too great. The thing is, that guy should be... Oh dear. Yeah, that was a bit painful. Oh my god, I've been left on 1 health. Crap. Okay, so that Type T-34 has been taken out, but I'm now on 1 health. I am going to die if I take another hit from an Moriarty or something with like a high damaging gun, so I have to play it now very carefully, and that means not getting into a fight with something like that Churchill there, because that will happen. Okay, so that didn't go so well, of course, but sometimes lower tier games do go better than that, and I think to showcase that I might go in with a tier 4 tank that I have a bit more success with, which is the Hetzer. The Hetzer is a tier 4 German tank destroyer. You can pick either a 75mm gun for this thing, which has high penetration but low damage, or the 105mm, which you can see I fixed on here, which has high damage, low penetration. It's a good little rugged tier 4. It's not as heavily armoured as the Matilda, it's not as sturdy, but it's got nice sloped armour, it's manoeuvrable, it's quite good acceleration, it's relatively quick, but the main thing about it is it's this 105mm gun. It does hell of shit tons of damage, metric butt tons of damage. Standard shell damage is 263 to 438. That's a lot for a tier 4 gun. And I mean, sometimes it does go in with tier 6s, which is a real butt pain, but usually it does go in with tier 4s and 5s, which isn't too bad. So go battle, so hope for the best. Come on. Oh yes, yes. Now this is good matchmaking. We're on normal Roenberger now, and we're up against mostly tier 4s, which have relatively light armor. So this is pretty good matchmaking for the Hetzer, especially when you have its 105mm gun. Its 75mm gun, I think, is probably a little bit better for fighting higher tier vehicles like tier 5s and 6s, but the lower tier gun, the 105, is much better for fighting lower tier vehicles like Matildas, Lees, Hetzers. The best, the one I love fighting the most, which the enemy haven't got one of, but we've got one of, is the tier 4 Soviet medium tank, the T-28. That thing has got a good gun actually, and it's quite quick, but it's got pathetic armour. And the Hetzer can pretty much destroy it with one shot from this gun with its high explosive ammo to the side, rear, and even sometimes the front. I mean, I would recommend going up the Soviet heavy line at some point if you want to get one of the tanks on their line, but be prepared, because the T-28 is a very flimsy tank, even though it's got a good gun actually. So just be warned about that. So you can see a tier 4 Japanese tank, the Chi-He. Ah, missed. That is the problem with this derp gun, though, is it's got a low velocity, so it takes a long time for the shells to travel. But then things like that happen. Oh man, I mean, he wasn't on full health there, but he still had a lot of his health. Just hit him in the side, and it just eviscerated him. And that's the great thing about this gun. Not great penetration, but massive damage, and that's what counts at lower tier, I find. So that's why you see a lot, like most of my lower tier vehicles have derp guns rather than high penetration sniper guns. Simply because I think derp guns operate better at lower tiers rather than sniper cannons. Now this is a bit more of a tougher cookie. The Matilda, tier 4 British medium tank. You just saw me playing it in the last match and get eviscerated with it. The Matilda is unfortunately a tougher opponent, and he's got a much more higher penetration gun, so I'm going to have to be a bit more careful with him. Just wondering how I should approach this. Get around the corner here, hopefully goad him out a bit. Doesn't seem like he's taking the bait. Okay, so I blew off his tracks there, didn't do any damage. But I've got a little bead on his lower hull there. Did 100 damage there. Now you won't do so much damage to the Matilda, of course, because it's got quite tough armour, but that's not too much of a problem with the high explosive shells this thing's packing. So there's a Covenant, a much lighter British tier 4 tank. And there you go. Destroyed it in one shot on probably about 75% health. And that's what I love so much about the derp gun on this tank. It just tears apart vehicles with lower tier light armour. It just rips them to shreds. And usually I do actually get more kills than 3 kills in this tank, but yeah, sometimes it just isn't meant to be. Sometimes you aren't meant to get a metric ton of kills. And that's kind of what happened actually in my last episode with the KV-5. I didn't get a huge number of kills, even though I consider myself quite good with that tank. I was just quite unfortunate, I guess. So there's an enemy Su-85B, low health. Beautiful. The thing is, even if you get like just splash damage with this thing, you're able to do quite a bit of damage to enemy lower tier vehicles. So there's the last enemy opponent. Another Hetzer. Almost had him there, but unfortunately, like I said, it's quite hard to hit moving targets with this gun because the velocity is so low. The shells take a long time to move. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to get the kill. The Su-85 did instead. But I still think that was a good game. I got 4 kills, did relatively large amount of damage for a tier 4 game. And I think, I did one of the weekly, or I think daily missions, Groundhog Day. So I got 75,000 credits there, so my final result was about like 90,000 credits. And about nearly 3,000 XP there, because I've got 3 times 3 experience for the first victory of the day, because it's International Women's Day, so Wargaming are celebrating by giving times 3 for the first victory of the day. And I also got Mastery Badge 2nd class. And that's the thing with like sort of lower tiers like that, lower tier vehicles like that. With the Hetzer you can just butcher your way through the enemy, but you have to be careful because it hasn't got the toughest armour. And then with the Matilda, you can sort of just tank your way through the enemy. But remember that most lower tier vehicles are much faster and more manoeuvrable than you, so don't get yourself outflanked. So, you know, just whether or not you're playing with the Matilda or the Hetzer, do sort of like try to be relatively aggressive, but don't get yourself sort of cut off without any support. I mean, thing is, you know, of course, like at lower tier vehicle games, your allies are going to be more likely to be crap. But, you know, it's always better to have some enemy allies near you, so don't sort of like go to a part of the map where there's absolutely no one, where you'll be not supported at all. You know, you might like kill like a couple of scouts before getting killed by yourself. But that's not a way to go in a tier 4 map. You need to show those lower tier scumbags that you are the best. Although, of course, sometimes that might not happen because at lower tier vehicle games, you will usually have the crapper team. But such is the way of life in World of Tanks, I guess. Anyway, that's it for episode 3 of World of Tanks with Gitbag. Hope you enjoyed it. Remember, if you ever have any suggestions, let me know, and I will be happy to take them into consideration. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you guys next time on the battlefield.